All right, welcome back. Hopefully, you guys all had a very nice and safe past couple of days during this holiday break. Hopefully, seeing some loved ones and all that kind of stuff. Getting back into it now, this is going to be my week review for Southeast Asia. This, of course, being a series I do for every single region. It has been quite a while since I've covered Southeast Asia, since, of course, I missed my week 2 review since I was traveling. So I'm going to be looping week 2 and week 3 together into this one video. Starting off with the upper division, taking a look at some matches from the past week, then taking a look at the updated standings, and finally some stats, whether that be heroes, teams, players, all that sort of stuff, and then doing the exact same thing for the lower division. So, without further ado, starting off with the matches from the past couple weeks, and again, this is going to be going back quite far since I missed week 2, starting off with December 8th. We have Fnatic taking on Tnc Predator. Heading into this, both of these teams had yet to have a win. Tnc was 0-2, Fnatic was 0-1. Obviously, Fnatic was projected to be the much stronger team here, and they come away with the win. It's a pretty straightforward win. Wasn't anything spectacular. There wasn't really any sort of big hold or anything like that from Tnc Predator. It's been kind of a lukewarm season for Tnc Predator, that's for sure, which was maybe to be expected. We knew that with the new direction that they were going with this new roster, that they weren't exactly investing in doing super well at the start, but as their roster played together for longer and longer, they would start to get better and better. But we haven't really seen any sort of highlight moments from Tnc Predator yet. Right now, they're looking like they got their head way below water at this point. And Fnatic gets a much-needed win to keep themselves in the hunt. As I said before, they lost their first series to SMG in week 1. Later that day, we then had Execration taking on OB.Neon. Again, OB.Neon, one of those teams that kind of didn't manage to hold their roster together from last season, which is pretty unfortunate. They were one of my favorite teams to watch in Southeast Asia last season. But regardless, Execration, they also got off to a pretty rough start. So heading into this, we weren't exactly sure who was going to be coming away with the win. As Execration kind of in that same position as well, had to make some roster changes, especially some last-minute ones after that whole Omega match-fixing scandal. But they come away with the win, and they're starting to turn things around. This is a very well-executed series from Execration. Even in the game that they lost, which was game 1, they had a very, very good start to the game. Things just kind of fell apart in the mid-game, and it ended up turning out to be one of the best games in this region in the past couple weeks. If you want to watch a really fun game, OB.Neon versus Execration, fantastic game. A lot of huge network swings, a lot of huge deaths throughout the game, a lot of big critical buybacks, all that sort of fun stuff. Fantastic game. And I won't spoil who wins it, but Execration does end up winning the series. So all around, great series for Execration. And yeah, all around. Game 1, check that out for sure. We then have December 9th, T1 taking on SMG. Heading into this, both of these teams getting off to 1-0 starts. But T1 just looking like they're just the higher class team right now. They're looking like they're still in the form that made them do so well at TI and at that second major. They are still performing super, super well, and they're still looking like one of the strongest, if not the strongest team in this region. And I'll talk more about why they may not be the strongest team. But of course, we won't know until the other team faces off against them. On December 11th, we then had Boom versus Fnatic, and Boom, being that other team that I was talking about, looking like one of the best in this region. Not only are they coming away with a lot of wins, but they're making them look very convincing. Some of the wins that they've had, very few of them, they were actually losing for the most part of the game, and they just have very, very nice team fighting coordination while playing from behind that enables them to come back into the game. Again, it's very rare that they're ever behind. And not only that, but they're beating some of the best teams in this region as well. They take down Fnatic. Later on in the week, they would then take on SMG and Motivate. And they're starting to pull themselves ahead and looking like one of the prime contenders for the first place finish in Southeast Asia's upper division right now. For later on that day, we had SMG taking on Motivate, and after starting off 2-0, Motivate starts to slip a little bit, and SMG showing that they're still one of the teams that really wants to get themselves into this first major. Again, Motivate kind of slipping a little bit. They started off 2-0, and they didn't exactly get the results that they were exactly hoping for in this past couple of weeks. On December 15th, we actually had a game postponed, and that was supposed to be T1 versus Motivate. This due to technical error. We also had a lower division match postponed on that same day, and we'll get to that when we end up covering the lower division. But we still had to, we were still able to watch Boom versus SMG, and again, Boom just looking really, really strong, just not really giving a lot of space for these teams, and Like I said, even when they very rarely find themselves behind, they know how to come back into a game. And to think these guys were supposed to be lower division in this first tour, I can only imagine how much harder they would be dominating in that lower division. But because of that Omega match fixing scandal that I was alluding to earlier, they're in the upper division, and not only that, they're looking like a team that's going to be going to the first major. On December 16th, we had Fnatic taking on OB.Neon. Fnatic getting a much-needed win to keep themselves in the hunt, but again, it's against one of the weaker teams in the region to this point. So they have beat OB.Neon and they have beat Tnc Predator, but will they be able to step up to the more competitive teams in the region, to the other teams that are tied with them and chasing them for that major slot? We'll have to see how it unfolds. And then December 18th, on the last day for Southeast Asia Upper Division before the break, we had Boom taking on Motivate. Again, Motivate kind of slipping a little bit, but they do lose to Boom, which again is looking like one of the best teams in the world. So maybe not as alarming as if they were to have maybe lost to Tnc Predator or OB.Neon. They did lose to the best team, but regardless, Boom, looking strong. And Execration coming away with a win, but again, it's against Tnc Predator, so they kind of did the same thing as Fnatic this week, where they pick up a couple of wins, but it is against the two weaker teams. So, taking a look at the standings now, moving up one spot from the last time we covered it. Boom was 1-0 after week 1. They are now 4-0, winning all 3 series that they've had in the past couple of weeks. And again, it's been against some pretty decent teams in this region, some pretty competitive teams in this region, and they have handled them. Looking like one of the strongest contenders. In second place, staying at the same spot, we have T1. They only win 1 series this week, and that was the only one that they played. Again, they were supposed to play one against Motivate, but that one ended up getting postponed. But they have still yet to lose a series, and I'm really, really excited for when these two teams end up facing off against each other, because that series will likely be the decider of who ends up finishing first and who ends up finishing second. As I still think, even though T1 has only played 2 series at this point, they should still be top 2 at least. Next up, we have Execration, who move up 2 spots. They were 0-1 after the first week, and they again pick up 2 wins against some of the weaker teams here, but 2 wins is 2 wins. They are keeping themselves in the hunt. In 4th place, we have a 3-way tie, starting with Fnatic moving up 1 spot. They went 2-1 in the past couple weeks. Again, same thing as Execration. They pick up a couple wins against some of the weaker teams, but those wins are really going to help them when it comes to staying in the hunt. Moving down 2 spots, we have SMG, who started off their season going 1-0 after week 1. They have since dropped 2 of their 3 series. So they drop a little bit, but again, they're still in the hunt. Same thing for Motivate, who drops 3 spots. They were first place in the division after the first week with a 2-0 start. They have lost both of their series since, and now they are in 4th place. Again, they're still in the hunt, but they're not nearly as far ahead as they once were. And now at the bottom of the division, dropping down 2 spots, we have OB.Neon, who is 0-3 to this point. They have lost 2 series in the past couple weeks. And then finally, we have Tnc Predator at the bottom in 8th place, staying there from the last time I did a review. They have lost both of their series that they played since my last review. And yeah, these guys are looking like they are most certainly going to be going home, unless they manage to, by some miracle, pick up 3 straight wins. Then these guys are very likely going to get relegated, which might be good because, again, with the new angle that these guys are coming at this new roster with, this is definitely one that is aiming to get better with time, that is aiming more for the future, giving them some more practice against some teams that are maybe a little bit more of their caliber in the lower division, might end up benefiting them. We'll have to see how it goes. Now, taking a look at some stats, there were 29 matches in total played. Keep in mind, one of the series was postponed, so it should be a little bit higher, but it isn't. Out of those 22 matches, Radiant has won, 29 matches. Out of those 29 matches, Radiant has won 22 of them. Very, very high win rate for Radiant. As for first pick and last pick, 21 wins for first pick. As we've been seeing a lot lately, it's either you are first pick Radiant or last pick Dire. And overall in Southeast Asia, it seems that if you are on first pick Radiant, you have a much better chance of winning. It seems that they're really prioritizing playing around the map a lot more than it comes to the actual drafting side of things. Taking a look at some of the top heroes of the region, we have Queen of Pain and TA, who are 5-0 each. Very impressive, especially since TA has been being played in the safe lane quite a bit. That's something we've been seeing quite a lot in a bunch of different regions. We then have Lion, who is 5-1, and Pangolier, who is 8-2 on 10 games. This hero has started to lose a little bit of popularity in some other regions, but not in Southeast Asia. The hero is still getting picked up quite a lot, and it is still looking quite good. I'm actually a little surprised of why we haven't been seeing as much Pangolier in some other regions, as his win rate has been pretty consistently solid in every single one of them. For worst heroes now, we have Storm Spirit, who is 0-4. That hurts me a little bit, as I am a big fan of Storm Spirit. Lifestealer 1-5, and Grimstroke 2-6. Grimstroke is a hero that seems to be popping up in a lot of regions, and it's always in the worst heroes category. So maybe steer away from the hero for a little bit until he gets a few more buffs. Although if teams are always picking him all the time, they might not feel that he needs any more buffs. For most banned, we have Monkey King, a pretty common hero there with 23, Invoker with 22, and Weaver with 18, so nothing really special there. Same kind of culprits that we've been seeing in pretty much every single region and division. For top GPM and teams, we have T1 leading the way with 24-47. Keep in mind, T1 has only played 2 series, whereas a lot of the other teams in this region have played at least 4. So their sample size is a little bit smaller. But again, they have looked really dominant in those 2 series that they've played. Following that, we have Execration, actually, with 22-36, and Motivate with 22-22. So Boom doesn't even show up on the top GPM here. They've pretty much just been winning their games too quickly for that, which I've talked about before. Usually when you're winning games a lot quicker, your GPM doesn't end up being as high as some games where you're obviously playing a longer amount of time. For XPM, we have T1 leading the way with 32-07. Very impressive, but again, small sample size. But they should still be one of the top teams in this division. Boom with 27-05, and then Execration with 27-04, so they're just behind by 1. And for top KDA, we have T1 with 8.49, Boom with 6.74, and Execration with 3.90. So Execration showing up on this leaderboard a little bit more than I was expecting, but again, they did play against some of the weaker teams in this region, so that's definitely a big part of it. For top players now, we have Nando leading the way with 694, very impressive. We then have Carl with 670 and 23 Savage with 668. For top XPM, we have Carl with 848. A whole 100 XPM ahead of second place, who is his teammate, 23 Savage with 748, and then finally Nando with 713. So Carl really far ahead there, again being one of the most consequential members of T1 right now, and why they're having so much success. For top KDA, we have 23 Savage leading the way with 18.8. And even though T1 hasn't played all that many series since my last review, I talked about it a lot in my first week review in that first series that they played. 23 Savage, just, oh my god, he's so good, man. The chronos that he was hitting in that one game in that first series was just fantastic. And I still remember like how frame perfect they were in just capturing all those heroes in it. So no real surprise that he's leading the way there. We then have Cuckoo, his teammate, with a 12.0, and Yopaj with 11.56. So yeah, a pretty interesting week. Again, a lot of movement. And despite that, we have a lot of teams that are all kind of stuck together. From second place, from T1, all the way down to, well, technically tied for 4th place. But we have a total of 5 teams that all have 2 wins right now, with some varying amount of actual series played. So this race for the major is turning out to be very close, which is kind of what we were expecting heading into this region. Heading into this, we knew that this was going to be a very stacked region, and doing my prediction for this region was very difficult. And I was mentioning it before I even got into it. I was not confident with it at all because of just how stacked this region is, and it's definitely living up to the hype. So I can clearly just say that the only teams that are very clearly cemented in their spots so far, and I don't mean to jinx it here, are Boom, who should be looking like one of the top 2 teams here at least, and then OB.Neon, Tnc looking like the 2 teams that are very likely going to go home. Unless they can manage to win at least 3 series. I think that's what it would take for them to not finish at the bottom. So yeah, all around fun times for the upper division. Now taking a look at the lower division. So again, just because of how many matches that have been played since my last review, I'm going to be trying to breeze through this a little bit quickly. And again, I pay more attention to the upper division in general when it comes to trying to watch live and keeping up with highlights and stuff like that than I do in the lower division. So if I miss any important details for these matches, I do apologize. Starting off December 6th, we have Polaris taking a 2-0 series win over 496, who has been having a pretty rough season to this point and is having a much rougher time since my first review as well. Polaris, again, one of those teams that is also doing quite well, pulling ahead a little bit, maybe surprising a few people, especially after they beat Talon in week 1. Where everyone was kind of expecting Talon to be the top team in this division just based off the sheer star power in their roster. That has not really been the case. We then have Ragdoll beating Interactive Philippines, who have also been having a pretty rough go of it this season. Interactive Philippines, that is not Ragdoll. Ragdoll has looked like one of the better teams in this region, actually, despite the fact that they are coming in through open qualifiers. We then have on December 9th, Team Nigma beating Talon 2-1. So again, Talon kind of getting off to a rough start here, not exactly getting the wins that I think a lot of people were expecting. And Nigma, as opposed to their Western European team, who has been heavily underperforming, at least in my opinion, and the opinion of a bunch of their fans, has been doing very, very well. They've been looking like, honestly, the better Team Nigma at this point. And they're looking like a clear contender for finishing top 2 and making it to the upper division for the next season, or the next tour. Later that day, we then had Polaris taking on Lil Gun. They win that one 2-1. December 11th, we have Talon coming with a win against Army Geniuses, a much-needed win, I might add. We then have Team Nigma beating Interactive Philippines 2-1. Following that, on December 15th, we have a series postponed, like I was talking about in the upper division with the T1 versus Motivate series. Due to technical issues in the streaming, this series is going to be saved for later, which is pretty unfortunate because this series would have definitely gotten a lot of viewership just because of its talent. On December 16th, we have Polaris taking Interactive Philippines down 2-0. Lil Gun beating Army Geniuses 2-1. We then have Ragdoll beating 496 2-1. And finally, ending things off, we have Nigma beating Army Geniuses 2-1 as well. So opposite to the upper division, where a lot of these series were just 2-0 and very quick and very one-sided, pretty much every single series in this past couple weeks in the lower division has gone to 3 games. And it's been a very competitive lower division despite some of the results, if you were to just look at the standings, which, taking a look at them now, staying in first place from the first time I did this review, we have Team Nigma and Polaris, who are 4-0 to start. So similar to Boom and T1, I'm very excited to see who ends up taking this series when they do face off against one another. They do have some very impressive playstyles and some very impressive wins out of their belt. I think in general, Polaris has maybe looked a little bit more dominant in their series compared to Team Nigma. But regardless, we'll have to see how their playstyles clash when they do end up meeting, as I do think whoever wins that series will end up being the first place finisher, which at the end of the day, when you're in the lower division, doesn't exactly mean all that much if you're first place, as long as you're top 2. That's where you want to be. Dropping down 2 spots as they were tied for first place in week 1, but still having a pretty impressive run so far, Ragdoll. Again, coming up through those open qualifiers, they have also yet to drop a series. They have just not played as many series as Polaris and Nigma. So this race for top 2 is starting to get a little bit spicy. In 4th place, dropping 3 spots from week 1, we have Lil Gun. They drop, they go 1-1, I believe, from week 1. Just kind of a rough week all in all for Lil Gun. They end up losing to Polaris, who again has been one of the best teams in this region, but still not looking necessarily weak. They've only played 3 series so far, so they still have plenty of time to catch up to those top teams. But with how well Nigma and Polaris and Ragdoll are pulling ahead right now, it might be a little bit more difficult than initially thought. Moving up 1 spot to 5th place, we have Talon. And I didn't really think I'd be saying that, as, you know, obviously they got off to a rough start and they move up to 5th place. They're 1-2 to this point, like they're not having the results they were exactly hoping for. Again, they've lost to some of the better teams in this region, those being Nigma and Polaris, but yeah, we'll have to see if Talon ends up pulling ahead. Again, they have lost to some of the better teams in this region. They're going to have to show that they're able to be better than those teams by catching up to them, by beating some of the weaker teams in this region, and then if there's ever tiebreakers or if they end up finishing top 2, then cementing that they're actually able to beat those other teams. Dropping down 1 spot, we have Army Geniuses, who I believe was 0-1 after week 1. They are now 1-4. It has been a pretty miserable run as they pop up on the losing side of things 3 times in the past couple weeks. So they go 0-3. So they are 1-1 after week 1. So pretty rough go. And speaking of rough goes, we have 496 and Interactive Philippines at the bottom of the list, all 0-4 each. So different from the upper division here, where the middle of the pack is very, very close together. We have like 5 teams that are pretty much all in the hunt for those for those major slots. When it comes to the lower division, we have a very set bottom half and upper half of the division. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that Talon is going to finish bottom half, or that Lil Gun and Ragdoll are going to be able to maintain their spots in the top half. That's not what I'm saying. But right now, the way that the standings are looking, that's, again, how it's looking. Taking a look at some stats now, out of the 39 matches. So again, these guys have played pretty much the same amount of series at this point. They both have had one postponed at this point, but because of how many of their series in the lower division have gone to 3 games, they just have 10 extra matches over the upper division. In those 39 matches, Radiant has also won 22. However, opposite to the upper division, 22 is a much smaller number in comparison, as Dire has 17 wins to this point. And for first and last pick, it's 19-20, so last pick actually pulling ahead a little bit, which is to be expected. Again, last pick is the stronger pick orientation to this point. It's just usually teams get it on Dire, which has not been very favorable, at least in Southeast Asia. For top heroes in this division, we have Enchantress, who is 4-0, which is a little surprising. We don't see that hero very much of pretty much anywhere at this point. We have Kunkka, 10-2, pretty common hero. We've been seeing quite a bit in a bunch of different regions. And Luna, 5-2, who is proving to be a very polarizing hero. We have some regions where the hero is like 1-9, and we have some regions where it is 9-1. So lower division of Southeast Asia proving that they are one of the divisions where Luna has looked pretty good. As for worst heroes, we have Tidehunter and Razor, who are 1-4 each. A little bit surprising there, especially the Razor one, who has been pretty popular and very strong in pretty much every region to this point. And Timbersaw, 2-6. This another one being kind of polarizing to this point. Definitely not having nearly as many wins, though, as a hero like Razor. As for most banned, we have Weaver leading the way with 26, Bane with 22, and Monkey King with 20. So Bane actually getting some respect in this region. A lot of regions are having a lot of very high win rates for Bane, but not necessarily following up by banning it a lot after those wins. Lower division of Southeast Asia, they're banning it. For top teams, GPM, we have Team Nigma leading the way with 24.90. Following that, we have Polaris with 24.02 and Ragdoll with 22.95. So those obviously being your 3 undefeated teams to this point. The same 3 teams show up besides Ragdoll. It's actually replaced by Lilgun in the XPM. Nigma with 30.16, Polaris with 28.82, and Lilgun with 28.64. And for top KDA, Ragdoll leads the way with 4.93. Lilgun follows that with 4.48, and then Team Nigma with 4.29. So no team having a really exceptional KDA to this point. Again, alluding to the fact that these series have been very, very close. Again, all of them pretty much going to all 3 games in this best of 3. But some teams are just able to win those third games a lot more reliably than some other ones. For top GPM players now, we have Gabby leading the way with 700. So despite, again, the fact that Talon has been having a really rough go of it, they have, again, played against some of the best teams. Gabby, not one of the players that's struggling on this team whatsoever. Following that, we have VT Faded from Ragdoll with 671, and then Natsumi with 657. For XPM, we have Alacrity from Team Nigma with 717, tied with Gabby, who also has that amount, again from Talon, and then Natsumi with 713. And finally, for top KDA, we have In Your Dream with 9.0. We have Ajit with 7.04 and 423, aka X123. Depending on where you look at his name, it's a little bit different, with a 661. So again, all around, very polarizing, not to play on the Polaris name. Standing so far, again, a very clear top half and bottom half, and we'll have to see if that shakes up again. You know, Talon, is this just a little bit of rust that they have to get rid of? If they are going to finish top 2 in this division, they can't afford to lose another series. Even if they win the remaining of their 4 series, I believe it is, they might not even make it top 2 at this point. So we'll have to see how it goes. And for the teams that are in top 2 and top 3 right now, if they keep up this pace, we could see Talon in the lower division for a little longer than I think we were expecting. You guys can let me know your thoughts all in the comments down below, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll have my review for Eastern Europe, aka CIS, tomorrow. And following that, I'm going to be finishing up my review series with a South America review and then China review, which is obviously going to be the entire lower division review as they finish their lower division at this point. And then after that, it's power rankings time. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow with another video.